Hello, James. How you
Hi,
doing?
Ben.
Yeah,
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit disoriented somehow because basically Restream has changed and everything, all the settings are on the wrong side. And I just tried to write something in the YouTube chat and it said there's an error, so I can't apparently type in my own chat. So
Uh-oh.
yeah, it's okay.
Well, I can type in the chat, so
I'll let you.
maybe I
I'll
can
let you
relay your
know what I
messages for you.
want. Yeah, I'll write in a private chat and you can copy and paste it.
There you go.
So it's a interesting start. Chris Wagner's here, and he did warn me a couple of weeks ago. He said, "Wait, the interface has changed in Restream.
Um,
It'll confuse you." And 2 weeks later, it's hit me, and there you go. So Chris is more prepared and more intelligent about these things. I'm just sitting here looking lost and can't find anything. Anyway, thanks for joining, James. It's much
yeah,
appreciated.
pleasure to be
Um,
here.
yeah, so I love your hat, by the way. I love these
Oh,
PLCs.
thank you, thank you. This is courtesy of Mike Carlo at Power BI Tips.
Thought so. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Would you like to maybe like introduce yourself a little bit before we get going? Who you are, what you
Yeah,
do, or
sure.
whatever you want, really.
Absolutely. James Bartlett. I have been working in with Power BI since, let's see here, December of 2018. And let's see here. Recently, so first couple of years I was working at a regional grocery chain in the Midwest here in the U.S. called Hy-Vee,
Okay,
and about 2 years there. After that, I transitioned. I'm working now at Des Moines University, which is a graduate level medical school.
nice.
Pretty small organization, but it also leaves me with a lot of freedom to do a lot of innovation and kind of set the tone for things, which is cool.
Hmm,
Let's see.
that's cool.
I was recently awarded a Microsoft MVP back in March of this
Hi,
year,
congratulations.
and thank you. And I have the PL 300 and DP 600 certifications. So kind of you know, I guess you could say an all around Power BI and Fabric guy.
Very nice. It's nice to be to that you. But sorry, I want to pick up on one thing before I forget. All of it's very interesting what you said, but you said you're working at and is it Des or Des
It's
Moines?
Des Moines. Yeah, I don't know
Mm,
why. I mean, I think it's French-ish.
could be.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, if it is French, then we're probably pronouncing the Moine part incorrectly. But I think the de is correct, at least as far as French pronunciation. Get in the comments. Tell us if we're pronouncing it wrong.
Exactly. But the only reason I pick up on it is because there's an author called Bill Bryson who I'm pretty sure was like raised or he grew up in Des
Yeah.
Moines or something.
Yep. I
And
actually just finished reading The Body like yesterday.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually
Great
haven't
book.
read any of his work for so long, probably about 10 years or something. And but I used to love it. I mean, I
Yep.
think the first one I read it was like when he lived in the UK, Notes from a Small Island it
Mhm.
was.
Mhm.
And I
There's
remember
another one that's all about living in Australia, I think, right?
yes, I read that one. Yeah, that was
Yep.
cool. I think my favorite one was the one where you walked across the Appalachian Trail or something.
Ooh, cool.
A Walk in the Woods, I think it was called. That
Mhm.
was but anyway, sorry, it's very random what I'm saying right now, but as you say Des Moines and I immediately pick up.
Yeah, yeah, yep, absolutely. It's weird. It's like it feels like we're in the middle of nowhere, but there's actually some pretty notable historical figures that are
Okay.
that have been played. That major parts of their life have played out in this area. So it's kind of. I mean, like, I guess you're probably going to have that almost anywhere in the world. Like any place could be a backwater, and some
Yeah,
person who's going to be famous on the world stage is going to end up doing something there at some point in their life. So
exactly.
but yeah, I would say it's a small town in feel, but it has a pretty thriving local economy. It's basically this is considered like the insurance capital of the country.
Okay.
Most like a huge number of insurance companies have their headquarters in Des Moines.
That's interesting.
So yeah, I mean like can't really imagine a more boring industry center like insurance. Ooh. Uh, but it does contribute to there's the fairly thriving tech sector here because of the fact that we've got that big regional grocery chain. Hy-Vee is the biggest grocer in Iowa and I think
Okay.
most of the surrounding states as well. And so there's that, and then there's large insurance companies, a lot of companies in the Midwest. There's a big one like a trucking company called Ruan that's also based here in Des Moines. So with all of that together, there's enough tech jobs to really there's
I
a
can imagine.
there's a
Yeah.
there's a local expression that people around here call it the Silicon Prairie because it's yeah.
That's good. I like
So
that.
yeah.
I'm a bit concerned. I'm impressed, stroke concerned about the amount of knowledge that Donald is dropping in the chat about Des Moines. It's Des
Oh
Moines.
yeah.
Now, either he has retained a huge amount of information, or he's on Wikipedia right now.
Well, I think Donald Parrish actually lives in the Midwest here too.
That would make sense.
Don't quote me. I think that he either does or did at some point live in the. Oh, we're out.
Wikipedia.
Say something in Czech. Nobody then. That's hello or good day.
Love it. There you
Yep.
go. So
Um,
do you also speak Czech? Is this like a thing as
I'm
well,
learning
or?
Czech. Learning Czech. My wife and I are planning to move to Prague, sometime soon.
Oh, really?
Trying to get through the visa approval process because they're to get a what they call digital nomad visa. There requires some hurdles on the U.S. side. Basically, I
Mm,
need to get my employer to prove to them that it's not going to be a problem for me to be working from there while
okay.
still getting paid in U.S. dollars and that sort of thing. So working on that right now, but.
Am I allowed to ask why, or is that too intrusive a question? Just
No, that's
cause,
fine. That's
okay.
fine. We're not getting any younger, and she's lived all over the world previously. I've only lived in the U.S. I've done a little bit of traveling, and it's like, hey, we need to get some more adventures in before we start getting old enough to where we can't really do that anymore. So it's like, hey, let's go like live in another country. So we did some research, tried to like figure out where would be a good place for us to go that would be like sort of central to a lot of the action in Europe.
Mm,
And it's like,
fair.
yeah, it turns out that Prague is you can go to a lot of really cool other places in Europe
Mm,
from there easily. The train systems and that kind of stuff.
mm,
We also really like the fact that the Czech Republic has a as far as like how their government is set up and
okay.
like the way their civil liberties
Mm,
are structured is pretty similar there to here in the U.S. So
okay.
I wouldn't have to worry about like, oh, if I go there I have to be worried about whether I say something bad about somebody and get sued into oblivion with a libel suit or something like that. So there's not that I'm like, not that I'm a trash talker, but it's just the like that kind of stuff. It's like, hey, it would be kind of cool to live somewhere where there's a different language, but it's going to
Mm,
feel in a lot of ways, sort of similar to where we grew up. And so um, we
cool.
did a lot of research and figured out, hey, Prague looks like a good place. And so at that time, I reached out to Stepan Rešel
Yeah,
in Prague,
yeah.
and I was like, hey, I know that you live in the Czech Republic. Can tell me about living there? And he's like, you want to move here? He didn't get it. And I was like, yeah, I want to come check it out. And so like he said okay, and so we started having frequent conversations, and now my wife and I have been over there 3 times, twice on vacations, and once most recently I was speaking at Data Point Prague, a conference
Cool.
in at the
Yeah.
very end of May. So yep,
That's really cool. I hope it works out for you, man.
yeah,
Just
yeah. Thank
work
you,
work
thank
comes
you.
through, and you'll be somewhat closer to me. It's not. I think it's maybe on the train. It's not. So maybe at some.
Yeah,
If you move across to Prague, maybe at some point we'll see each other in one of the places
yeah.
around
Well, I
Europe.
mean, the idea is to try to like be able to be there for like there's
Mm,
tons of cool conferences going on in Europe, and so like it would be much easier to get there on a train than to have to get on a transatlantic plane
yeah,
flight. So
sure.
yep, that's the
Very
idea.
cool. Very cool. And like you see, so you the company that you're currently working for, it's still planned that you work for the same company, you just in a different time zone.
Yeah, hoping to get that to work out. I'm negotiating with them right now, so it's a slow process. It's academia, so everything takes a little longer than trying to get things done in the corporate world. But there's upsides to that as well. I kind of like the pace of life at this organization where everything's kind of like more laid back. So
Mm, mm.
yeah,
Very nice. Well, I'm sure they wouldn't want to lose you. Who would, right? So.
I sure hope so. Some days it's like, wait, do they even know I'm here? But
Sure. So what is it that I'm trying to move it slightly towards the data thing. Not that I
yeah,
care, but other people might. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so you mentioned it, and I've probably forgotten immediately. I apologize for that. So your job title at your current place, what is it that you're doing?
yeah.
What's your
So
day to day
my
basically?
actual job title
Mm,
really doesn't encompass what I'm really doing with the organization. It's senior business intelligence analyst.
nice.
What I'm actually doing with the organization is a little more like yes, I do business intelligence analyst
Mm,
stuff. I'm kind of like the de facto leader of our BI and data team.
okay.
We have 2 other people on my team, and I kind of I work with our project manager to kind of set the pace, set the tone, set the agenda for what we're going to be doing as a team. I'm also kind of like the architect of all of our everything downstream of the data warehouse. So we have data flows, we have
Okay. Yeah.
things in that we're doing to basically to automate the process of bringing that data into Power BI. I have
Understandable.
some Power Automate stuff that basically kicks off at the end of our ETL jobs on the data warehouse,
Mm,
kicks off our data flows whenever the data for them is available upstream. Um, I'm the, I guess you could say, the person who does the most Power Apps development in the organization. So I've got a couple of apps that we've
cool.
developed that tie in with reports in Power BI that give the users the ability to actually interact with the data that
Yeah,
then gets fed back into the model. Um, Stuff like that. So, and then I'm also I started a thing called the Data Dojo. It's a Power BI community practice in the organization, and that's probably the thing that I've become most known for in the Power BI community, because I started blogging about it,
mm,
and am trying to be just brutally honest about the
sure.
process and the pitfalls that we've stumbled into, and the mistakes that I've made, and trying to help other people who are interested in trying to drive self-service analytics in their organizations in a way that help them avoid the mistakes that I made, and also identifying some of the things that have been successful so they can replicate those as well.
Very nice, very cool.
Yeah.
I managed to drop the link. I can now type in the chat, so
Oh,
I'll put the
sweet.
link to
Yep.
your data
Yep.
volume.
That's my blog. Yep. And
The
so
data dojo.
far, like the I think it's like all but one of the posts I've made are about the Data Dojo. And I've got two more posts on the way here. I have one that's coming up, that I've been working on for a while, and another one I'm going to be talking about the um, a brand new development that just started happening in our organization, where it used
Okay.
to be just workshops, which
Mm,
was planned ahead, where we had an agenda. We had, this is what we're going to teach people how to do.
mm,
And recently we've started doing this thing called the office hours and coffee lounge. And the idea is to take the kind of vibe that you get from an office hours environment or a coffee lounge on a university campus, and say, rather than us having an agenda, we're just going to make it a hangout spot where people can come
mm,
in. There's going to be some experts there. And so if you come in, you got some questions, bring them with you. We'll talk about it. Somebody can share their screen. We'll walk through the process, and hopefully we solve the problem. And if it turns out actually this is bigger than what we can cover in that kind of format, we'll say, all right, we'll go back and do a little bit of research, try to get an answer, and get it back to them. Sometimes we might make a discovery that's big enough. It's like, yeah, we should actually, more people in the organization should be aware of how to deal with this issue, or how to implement this
cool.
desired solution. And then we'll take a concept like that from that
Mm,
more informal kind of setting, and say, okay, we're going to actually turn this into a formalized workshop. So, and we offer we have a report template that we provide
okay.
to the users, and so it's got like our color theme in it. It has a few
Mm,
pages that basically just have some demos of, here's how you can put visuals on the page, here's how you can arrange your slicers in like a vertical bar or horizontal
mm,
across the top, or here's how to put them in a show hide pane with the bookmarks. All that stuff is just in there, and then when they open it, they can just start
mm,
playing around with it and see how it's made. And then there's a bunch of other stuff on the back end with Power Query, where we've got a bunch of custom functions in there. I have a custom function that's called get table from data flow, and you just name the data, name the workspace, name the data flow you want, and name the table that you want from it, and it goes and fetches that table into your
that's
model.
cool. That's
So,
nice.
and because we use data flows for almost all of our ETL, we have
This thing, yeah.
I think we have maybe like one or two semantic models in the entire organization. They're actually still hitting a SQL database directly rather than going through a data flow. So
Understandable.
it really cuts down on the load
Yeah,
on the server.
it's a nice way of working.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
One thing I want to pick up on, one of the first things that you said there, was that your job title is senior BI analyst or something
Hmm.
similar to that.
Right. Yep.
I've noticed recently there are more and more situations where people have a job title like BI analyst. My job title is senior data analyst. Um, but a lot of what you do, or maybe the majority of what's done, is more closer to internal consulting or something.
Yeah. Yep.
And and also there are so many job titles related to this industry as well now.
Yep.
I get these like still stream of emails coming regarding like Indeed, all this stuff. And I saw one the other day and I had laugh. And the job title was just data enthusiast. That was the job title.
Yeah, that almost
It's
sounds like the like some of those old school job titles that Google used to have back when they were a really small company,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Or the ones at Facebook and things where like back when they were still like letting themselves be goofy. Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah, but
yep, I
it's
like
really
that.
hard it's really hard to pin down someone's responsibilities based on the job title. I mean, I know it's relatively common, but I've seen it more and more frequently that someone started off as an analyst, but the company or companies in general just don't really know what name to give to
Yeah,
someone for doing their job. So you can end up someone, and I say like my title is analyst. I actually don't do that much analysis on a day-to-day basis, you know?
yep, yep. Same.
It's an
I
interesting
think
thing.
I think the reason for that is I think is twofold, or and there may be other factors involved too, but the two that I can think of right off the top of my head are one is that this industry is just changing so quickly. I don't think people's concept like there's job titles that have been around for 10 years, 15 years, where the like the things you would be doing with that job title that long ago aren't
Mm,
even relevant anymore, but the job title is still the same. And I think a lot of times somebody gets into an organization and they were hired for a specific job role. This is the second thing where you're hired for a job role, and that's your title at first, and maybe your job description actually aligns uh, with that title.
yeah,
But then once you get in the organization, it turns out that the reality on the ground is that the organization needs this other stuff done,
yeah,
and currently there's no one able to do it, or no one else able to do it.
yeah.
No one has the skills or no one has the time, and
Mhm,
so those job responsibilities get sort of tacked on
mm,
after the fact. So I have like my job description, which is like a document that's like 1.5 pages long, and
mm.
then I have my shadow job description, which
Yeah.
is actually like three pages long. So and that's that's the reality. That's not it's not that doesn't get published, but that's
Mm,
so if somehow if my organization were to need to replace me, they need to find somebody who could do my job description and my shadow job description. um, and that's how it would be now. Obviously, when they first hired me, they didn't have any power apps.
yeah,
They didn't have any automated processes that were running at the beginning of the day that a PowerShell in the SQL Server kicks off a Power Automate flow, which kicks off a data flow. All that stuff is stuff that I built, and if someone were to come in and try to replace me, they would need to know how to do all that stuff too.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
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 I mean, we kind of expand the scope of our own jobs over time as
uh,
we as we skill up, and as we find, oh, there's
exactly.
a more efficient way of doing this. It does require some more technical solutions to do it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's true. But as Donald was saying here in the chat, BI developer, also analytics. I think
Hmm.
analytics engineer seems to be
Hmm.
becoming more popular than BI. I
Yep.
have an issue with BI developer. Sometimes me, it just seems like you just make reports. I think it's BI
Right.
developer, but it's something like analytics engineer. I think there was something between those two things. Because analytic engineer sometimes for me feels too close to being in like a data engineer, which I'm most definitely not. I don't know. Um, Yes, also Matthew Roche is here. I've made it.
Wow.
Let's go. And he was very excited to see you as well, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it is.
this is great. We actually had wow, wow.
Yeah,
I,
right.
I was saying the same thing. What's like we actually hosted Matthew on I'm a co-leader of the Iowa Power BI user group, and
All right.
recently joined the higher education Power BI user group as a co-organizer for them as well. And a while ago, I want to say close to maybe didn't know about 2 years ago or something like that. Matthew came on the Iowa Power BI user group, and Mike Carlo from Power BI Tips helps us syndicate those live streams out to the world through Restream, like we're doing here. And Matthew did a great presentation with us about the Power BI adoption roadmap,
Cool.
and kind of a sort of high level overview of
Mm,
data governance in,
mm.
in that context. And that was great. I think we had really good reactions from that, and so it's always a pleasure running into Matthew in these kinds
In-
of situations. So
Indeed, I'm also going to bring up this because I always bring up praise because I'm just vain that way. And but
oh wow,
knowing that
nice.
Matthew is here, I can totally put him on the spot, but not really because he's not like here. But Matthew, you should come on sometime and join me on a live stream. That would be also be fantastic for me. If you're up for it, please just let me know. You know what I'm saying? That would be cool. Not to like really put you on the spot there. Roche's Maxim. Yes, of course, Roche's Maxim.
Hmm.
I think it's probably on every single Power BI training that I've that I've ever given. Most people have as well, to be honest. It's a cool thing. I mean, to have a maxim named after you, Ben should email
It's
me.
pretty
He
big.
should,
It's
yeah.
pretty big.
It's a pretty big deal. Like if he's calling me out, I should email you. I could have get you on LinkedIn, to be honest. I checked before.
Oh, there you
I
go.
checked before I said that to see if we were connected on LinkedIn because I couldn't remember, but we are. So I've got no excuses, to be honest.
Nice.
There you go. He's called me out immediately. I deserve that, to be honest. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, working with data. Actually, it was interesting because before I joined my current company, I'd worked with data flows a little bit, but we didn't have a great need to them. I previously worked, but so it was one of the things that I kind of in the first couple of months was looking at what we're doing with them, and it's pretty much how you described basically, and it's a nice way of using that with the data flows. We've actually just at my company just switched on Fabric. So that's my current new thing. I think someone mentioned before you can call yourself a fabricator. So if
Yep.
there you go, John said it. If I spend, I don't know, for a good month diving only into Fabric, maybe at some point I could dare to call myself a fabricator. I'm not entirely sure. But that's my next challenge. Have you managed to play around with this at all? Or
Yeah. So I mentioned that I'm kind of like the, I guess you could say, de facto team lead in my organization for the data team, and we have a guy who joined us about 6 months ago now. Who he came on, and we already had a very like early stages beta project underway for utilizing Fabric to ingest data from a system where the data that comes in from the system is structured in a way that I don't think I've ever seen data structured before. It doesn't look like it was designed for anybody to ever try to import it into another system and try to use it to try to aggregate multiple files together. It looks like basically those individual files were designed to be a report that someone just opens up and looks at that report by itself.
okay.
It's all uh, what is it, pivoted when it goes out to columns, or is it unpivoted? I
I
can
always
never
forget.
get
I
them
think pivoted,
right.
right? Unpivot is to remove the columns. Pivot is to put the. I think. Yeah. I think
Put more
that's. Yeah.
columns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a mess. Like it's pivoted all the way out. It's like it's basically it's exam data, and every question gets its own column. So if some exams have like yeah, and then and of course the questions are tagged by like with a category of
Mm,
knowledge that they're trying to test for that. And every category, every question have more than one category of data that's tagged for it.
mm,
So it's this uh, it's a real monster of a problem trying to get all this data into Power BI,
yeah.
and so we basically said, we had at one point there was a solution where it was handling about half of the files that we were needing, and that was based on SSIS.
Mm,
But even then, the code under the hood was written in a language that nobody at our organization knows anymore. I think we
mm,
probably had hired a consultant at some point to write it for us, and
mm,
so we couldn't maintain it ourselves. And then Fabric came along and was like, hey, so everybody in our team knows Python at least. We could, if we built this in Fabric, we could do it in PySpark, and at least then it would be maintainable by more than just one person. And so anyway, this guy that's on our team now, he's basically finished took that beta version or sorry, I guess you say proof of concept, and turned it into a full production
cool.
data ingestion pipeline now, where it's all based in a PySpark notebook, but it's all like
Mm,
very very well done Python. It's all everything's broken out into classes, and it's just very very clean looking now. And I'm really impressed with how the performance is going as well, because it used to
mm,
be it was pretty performance hungry, and he was able to optimize it down to where it's like super slim now. So yeah,
mm.
that's all we have right now. That's in Fabric. That's in production. We actually just got our F2 capacity the other day.
Okay.
We are such a small organization that we can't really
Mm,
justify anything larger than that right now. We have premium per user for all of our other workspaces.
mm.
So we were getting basically premium everything else other than Fabric everywhere else. But
Yeah.
at some point, probably next budget cycle, we're going to probably end up trying to switch back to like an F64 plus capacity, because of the
Okay.
fact that the organization is now asking for us to build student facing
Mm,
reports. And of course, PPU is fine when you've got a faculty and staff of maybe a couple hundred people, but once you start dealing with thousands of students who want to each
yeah.
look at their own individual data, their performance on their their exam scores, their performance when they go to take like board exams outside of the university, all those things. We collect all that data, and the idea is to try to give them the ability to go look at their own performance and track their
Yeah.
progress over time. And of course, we can't just give each of them a PPU license, because that would go into the stratosphere cost wise.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's going to be definitely an interesting next year or so. I'm really hoping that they figure out a way to give us at least some of the Fabric capabilities in PPU.
It's really, I've
We'll
got to
see.
say, it's really interesting, this discussion, because I work for university, and I'm doing similar things at this point with Fabric, because we just got Fabric, we got the F64 because we wanted some of the Copilot. But previously we've only worked with PPU, and the workspace that we have with PPU, I'm just thinking, should I just make it a Fabric workspace so then people can just, we don't need the PPU anymore, But the only thing, that's stopping me, and this is not me asking anyone, I haven't had the chance to test it. I've literally never used Fabric or Premium before at all, actually, other than PPU. We want to switch off, so of course not every user can create a Fabric item. Yeah, we only want for
right.
My only concern is that if I make this workspace a Fabric workspace for the access perspective, does that mean for this workspace only people who can create Fabric items can publish a report to a Fabric enabled workspace, or does create Fabric items mean stuff like data flows, et cetera, et cetera? So this is what I need to test in the next few days, because I want to. It would be so much easier if we get rid of the PPU stuff. Just to, as you said, assigning individual people PPU licenses can be a pain in the ass, but also, of course, expensive, especially when you already have the Fabric just sitting there.
Right.
So,
well, there's another thing to take into account on that too, and that is PPU is under the hood, you're going to get performance that's close to a P3, which is just if you're trying to get that out of an F SKU, you like the amount you'd be paying for would just be astronomical compared to what you're paying for your PPU. And with PPU workspaces, you're not metered at all, right? So with your F SKUs, you are metered, and you can basically you can peg that. And you can run out of compute units, and you can basically, and any reports that are based in that workspace, the reports, when someone goes to view the report, the compute for the DAX queries that run to the model come out of your CUs. So I think it's important for people to think about, maybe we think of Fabric, especially if you're using lower F SKUs, you put that in a workspace where you're doing the data import, the data processing, basically you're in a Fabric-based ETL, or you're in a data engineering, you do that in a Fabric workspace. And then you have another workspace, your premium per user or whatever, that connects inter-workspace, imports the data into a semantic model in your PPU workspace, and then you let your users hammer the hell out of the semantic models in that PPU workspace, because it's not going to take away from your CUs in your Fabric workspace. So that's kind of where I've come down on it right now, and I'm not sure how this is going to shake out in the next. I'm sure that there's all these discussions are probably happening behind closed doors at Microsoft too. So
yeah, sure. Most definitely. That's a very good point. I feel like you're going to send me some kind of consulting invoice now for that tip that you just gave me.
No, that's a freebie. That's to get you hooked. That's to get you hooked. I have to give out the samples for free, and not
I get it. It worked very well.
I'm your data pusher.
Another job title. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, data dealer. I just got it on my business card. It's got like a pot leaf on it.
Oh my god, that would be
right.
awesome. You have to drop. Thank you very much, John, for joining. Much appreciated. Also,
Thanks,
Matthew, thank you all. I'll message you soon.
Thanks.
Yeah, very nice. That's cool. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's nice to have all these things to play. I was speaking to one of my colleagues, and I was saying, I mean, Fabric said it's a great thing for us to be able to play with and just learn from. I mean, if there's there's nothing massively pressing that we kind of need to create for production. It's just like we have it. We have Copilot, which is primarily the purpose of having the F64, to be honest. And from that, we can just use it.
You got me curious about that. So you bought the F64 primarily to get Copilot. You can get Copilot, basically the help with writing code and stuff like that, from GitHub Copilot, which is like way cheaper. Like, depending on how many users you have that are actually needing to use it to help with writing code, why not using GitHub Copilot instead?
Could you essentially you could also use ChatGPT for such things as well? I mean,
ChatGPT doesn't get the context of your code. So, what I do with GitHub Copilot is I take my PBIP file. I've got that that folder where I had the PPIP stored, I then open up that folder in VS Code with GitHub Copilot running, and then I use the @workspace keyword to basically tell the chat to look
Okay.
at the whole folder rather than just the file that I have open. And
Understand.
so then when I go and ask it questions on, like doing with a DAX something, or I'm going in and manually editing the M code or things like that, it has the context of everything else that's in that file, the model, the relationships, the measures, all that stuff, and it knows all of that stuff. So I think that that's the closest you can get to a Fabric Copilot. Or Fabric Copilot has that same context. It
Yeah.
can see your model, it can see your all that
Yeah.
stuff. From a cost perspective, especially if you only have a handful of people who are actually using the code writing capabilities, or the code assistance in Copilot, I think the GitHub Copilot is a really good
Makes sense,
alternative to
actually.
that, where you can get basically the same. It does involve having to actually open VS Code
Yeah.
in a separate window from Power
True.
BI Desktop, so it's not quite as like clicky, draggy, droppy, to use Christian Wade's catchphrase.
Exactly.
But it gets you to the same place roughly. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think probably somebody who actually knows a little more about the differences between GitHub Copilot and Power BI Copilot could probably say, well, Power BI Copilot's been more optimized because it's just the
Sure.
Power BI model, as opposed to having all of the GitHub code base in there, probably.
Yeah.
But it gets me where I need to go. And for whatever it is, like $15 a month or something like that for GitHub Copilot, it's like it's a steal.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. I'm just going to completely pivot the conversation because
Or unpivot.
Unpivot. Oh, I see what you did there. Very good. Andy,
got to get my uncle jokes in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're in a good company for bad uncle stroke dad jokes for sure. Nice looking guitars, pivoted.
All right. Here, I've got to go ahead with where you were going to pivot the conversation. I'll just pull them down and I'll give people a close up. But where did you want to take the conversation next?
Mate, wherever you. I mean, we're looking at guitars right now. This is a wonderful thing for me. I mean,
So
we talk about guitars. I mean, that's a point.
There's a Schecter.
Right now.
Yep. And the finish on this one's called Ultraviolet. It has this weird a thing where it's like purple and blue, kind of depending on what angle you're looking at it.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. So
nice.
And it's got one of these. This pickup is called a Sustainiac. So this like one of these little switches down here. If I play a string and just hold it, if that is on, it will just keep vibrating that string basically indefinitely, and so you can get really cool.
That's awesome.
And like different modes. One of them goes into like harmonics and stuff, so that's pretty neat.
Very cool.
Yep. And this one is this one's a Washburn that I customized a few years ago. So I polished off all of the original factory paint. This was like a gunmetal gray or something like that before, and now it's got a Colorado flag on it. Very and then I designed this little symbol up here. This is a bass clef, treble clef, and an infinity symbol all kind of rolled into one.
Nice.
And so, yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Exactly. Purple rain color is the question from Donald there.
Right? Oh, Purple Rain. Yeah. I do like Prince. I'm not like a super fan, but I definitely like his showmanship. I think that's one thing I really admire about the guy. So
my thing with Prince is I'm probably one of those people who, I guess it's probably not many people because he's extraordinarily popular, famous, that I only kind of understood and appreciated after he died,
Yeah, same.
It's just one of those things, It's just like I of course I was always aware of his existence, and I think I didn't know anything about Purple Rain until I watched Jane Silent Bob. Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. Because they mentioned Purple Rain, and I was like, what's Purple Rain? What's his reference? And of course I googled it. The Jane Silent Bob thing. That's where I got it from.
the moment that I was like, I need to be paying attention to this guy was his Super Bowl performance where he played Purple Rain in the rain. It was like one of the most epic live guitar solos I've ever seen. And I was like, all right, okay, this guy's on my list now. So yeah.
I think it's one of the things when you kind of start to read about him or watch videos, it's like one of the top links, so you kind of see it immediately. But yeah, it's pretty special. I am very musically not talented. I'll try to play one, like I've got like here on my wall that you can't see a couple of ukulele, and which is of course 4 strings, which is about all I can manage. But I had to resign myself. And maybe when I started playing, I was like, look, Ben, you're going to try and play this. Your learning is going to be a very, very slow, gradual, and it is. So I had to
Mhm.
take joy in the multitude of mistakes
Mhm.
that I make. I've tried to play so many instruments my entire life, and when I was young, of course, I was impatient. So I tried to play guitar, and I wasn't amazing after like a month. I was like, this sucks. I gave it
Yep.
because young and stupid as you are.
You have to have a teacher. I think that's the
Yeah,
big thing is like with
true.
instruments, uh, you know, it's one thing when you're trying to teach yourself something where there's like where technique is not
Mm,
as important. Like there's no like analog nature to working with data, right? It either works or it doesn't. And I mean, like I guess you could say there's like performance optimizations and
mm,
stuff like that, but I think it's a lot easier to self teach coding than it is to self teach an instrument, because if you're doing it
yeah,
wrong with playing an instrument, you might get like you might get to where you're just like, okay, this sounds okay, but you don't realize that you're actually gripping the thing wrong or you're holding the pick wrong, and like you'll be able to get some stuff out of it, but because you build bad habits, then it becomes harder to break them later. And so I think it's really important to have somebody to teach you, at least at the very beginning,
yeah.
to teach you what not to do first,
Mm,
and help you get onto the right path, and then it's much easier to develop your own style once
mm.
you've got the fundamentals in order. So
Absolutely. I think, I mean, this is true for so many things. I started and a couple of months ago, I was like, okay, when I was younger, I was always kind of like interested in golf and I like to watch golf. And I was decided to start taking golf lessons. And I went there for my first lesson, and the instructor, a really nice guy, he was like, "Okay, so what's the crack? Like, where have you played before?" And I was, "Yeah, I played a bit when I'm in my 20s." And I was like, okay, but like, and then I started to play, and obviously I realized that what my definition of okay and the golf teacher's definition of okay are two wildly different things, of course.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, so now we will now show you how to unlearn everything that you've been doing for the past X number of years because it was
Hmm.
just all wrong. And that's so like having to unlearn as you learn is really
Yep.
difficult. It's just like everything about your body is like saying, "Yep, this is all wrong," but you know it's right, and it's a
Yep.
very tiring and
Yeah,
sometimes
I think
exhausting
that's a great
process.
analogy. Like any like sports and I think music and sports probably have a lot more in common than a lot of people imagine.
Mm,
The idea that you can get up to a certain point of being good with while doing everything wrong below that, and if somebody who's looking at you doesn't know anything about it might go, yeah, that's pretty good, but what they don't realize is that everything below that's been built on this like shaky foundation, and you can't get any higher than that, because if you do, it everything tumbles
mm,
over, right?
yeah,
And yeah, that's like I did this, like I basically taught myself how to snowboard from the
cool.
ground up. Like didn't ever have a lesson.
Mm,
I had like my dad was kind of like going along with his skis on, beside me, and like
mm,
pointing out when he thought I did something that looked like it
sure.
was probably wrong, but he didn't know anything about snowboarding either. So I got to a point where I felt like, yeah, all right, this is fun, but uh, I could never actually get like good rotation going when I go off a jump and things. Like I couldn't like get my, there's just lots of things where I wanted to do things bigger and better, and I
Mm.
really couldn't. And I started realizing I think I probably learned a lot of bad habits, and I would have
Mm.
to go back and try to unlearn them all. And at that point, I was already getting kind of like bored of doing it anyway, so I just kind of quit.
Fair enough.
So,
Yeah, I know how that
but
goes.
yeah, like I think you're absolutely right. There's something to be said for for that.
But for me, I'm not sure if it's age or because of my profession or the way I've taught myself my job is that I really see such an enormous difference between how I learn stuff now or the patience I have for my own learning now and
Mm-hmm.
then being say 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easier to kind of like take joy in that experience
Hmm.
of being bad and then incrementally getting better because I've taught myself a career essentially where I know where I was, I know where I am now, and because I've been through that with one thing, I think somehow I
Right.
don't know, I'm just guessing, maybe it's just age as well, but I kind of feel that I'm better at learning because I'm better at embracing being terrible at stuff and think it's okay to be bad
Yeah.
because you can kind of see where it's going to take you, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other thing is when you're young, you don't necessarily know what your career is going to be. So at
Yeah.
that point, everything new that you try is like, well, maybe this is going to be the thing that I have to do for the rest of my life. So I better be really really good at it, right? And I think once you've actually got a good established career, it's like, okay, now I know what I'm doing for my living.
Mm.
Then when you're not working, you can go, okay, cool. now I can just take some time and mess around and not really care if the results are great, because it's not my livelihood doesn't depend on this.
Yeah.
And so you can
Fair.
take your time, and you can mess up, and you can go
Mm,
down rabbit holes that don't end up leading anywhere. And
mm.
it's not hampering your progress in the world. You're still sort of taken care of in that regard. So it's
Absolutely.
kind
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. Once you've gotten your, like, your base in place, it's a lot easier to focus on the more creative and aspirational kinds of things you want to do with your life.
Very true. That's very getting pretty deep. I like it. I enjoyed that.
Nice.
Yeah, very good. How is the golf revival going? Right? It's going okay. I can hit the ball straight, and I can hit the ball straight for like 100 meters, which is like 190 yards or something. So that's basically hitting the ball in a straight line and not generally killing anyone was my target, and no one is dead yet.
Yes.
Um, so it's quite nice. Though I haven't played on a I'm not the thing is I'm not sure what it's like in the US or wherever anyone is located here. In Germany to play golf on a golf course, you have to take like a license. Like Germans are very, very obsessed with like, licenses and all this type of stuff. You can't just like go and say it. So and I have to take my license test, which I'm going to do in like a month. So yeah, it's good fun. It gets me out of the house. I realized I hadn't had any hobbies like since the pandemic. I haven't had any
Mm,
hobbies that were like outside. Before I used to go
mm,
to like take photographs of football matches and stuff. So I was out every weekend doing, and I was like, and sometimes it's just nice to like be there at the driving range or the 3-hole course I am allowed to play with no license, and just be like, I'm outside on a field in fresh air. This is
yep.
this is nice, just to breathe it all in and then leave before the mosquitoes arrive, of course, but enjoy
Yeah.
it as it goes.
I'll tell you. So my outdoor thing is longboarding, and I've got a little pitch for you here. So longboarding is a great way. I think it's probably the best way to explore urban environments. Like, if you're the kind of person who wants to just kind of go out and explore your local area and see what's around, it's way quicker than getting around on foot. Uh, but and it's not as fast as going on a bicycle, and you don't have to pay quite as much attention to
Yeah.
everything that's going around you, because you're going a little slower. So you can actually spend a little more time kind of taking in your surroundings and actually getting to know your area, as opposed to just focusing on the road and making sure you're not, like, going to
Mm.
run into a pothole or something. And the other nice thing is that when you get where you're going, or if you get somewhere, it's like, oh, I kind of want to stop in here and like get a bite to eat, or I
Mm.
want to go in this building and see what's going on here. You just pick up your skateboard and carry it in with you. You don't have to, like, with a bike, it's like, okay, now I got to find a place out here to like lock up my
Lock
bike.
it, and then yeah,
Yeah.
it's annoying.
So I'm a big proponent of the longboard for that reason, because it's such a it's a good balance of being able to get to a completely different part of town,
Mm.
and all the way back in time before sunset,
Yeah.
um, and get a good amount of exercise, your city,
Yeah.
see the sights, smell the smells, all that
It's
stuff.
it's a very I mean, I love longboarding too. It's a very relaxing way to get around. I completely agree. It's just there's something about it that kind of role. It's really enjoyable.
Yep.
The reason that I stopped longboarding is because Berlin is an absolute nightmare for longboarding
Oh no.
because it is basically just there are so many cobbles in the city.
Mm,
It's insane.
mm-hmm.
It's just it's not an enjoyable experience at all.
Yep. Yep.
There's a field, or it's a former what you call airport called Tempelhof.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And so basically, Tempelhofer Feld is known in Berlin. It's basically you can just go down the old runway and stuff. It's a huge area of land, which is great for
Mm-hmm.
longboarding, and it is nice. But it's not like getting around. It's just like longboarding for the sake of
Right.
longboarding,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. It's
infinitely
like
less
going to the gym
enjoyable.
and lifting weights. You're not actually going anywhere. You're not lifting any real thing. You're just doing it for the pure enjoyment of doing the activity. And
Exactly.
longboarding is great. I don't actually, if like, I wouldn't have like a longboarding treadmill in my house, right? Like, I like going somewhere
Exactly.
and seeing things. And like I said, like, I would like to
Mm.
go like longboarding and go get like a burrito at a local
Yeah.
burrito shop or something like that. I
Yeah.
usually use the longboard for things like that, where it's like, hey, I have an errand to run
Mm.
and the weather's like reasonable. So
Yeah, my first longboarding experience was in Australia, and there the
nice.
pavements are much smoother, and it was just
Hmm.
generally easy to get by. But also Berlin is, I mean, it's not like massively populated, but it's a lot of people, and so
Yeah.
you have the pavements, and then you have the bike lanes, and the cyclists don't want you on the bike
Yeah, yeah.
lanes,
I mean, you're too slow
and
on a skateboard. You can't go fast enough
exactly, and the
to
pedestrians,
motorcyclists. Yeah,
you piss off the pedestrians by being on
yeah,
the pavements.
yeah.
That's so fair. I don't mind pissing off Berliners because I get pissed off so easily anyway. They are a very grumpy bunch of humans. It's crazy.
That's funny.
I remember a few years ago now, but it's my go-to example for how unnecessarily grumpy Berliners can be. I was walking just down the street across the road, and you do that thing sometimes where you walk towards someone and you go left and they go there,
Yeah,
right,
the
and you
shall we
kind of
dance, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
I had a
yeah,
friend of years ago. He referred to it as woggling, which I love because it's
yeah,
like a wobble, and also I forget the other word that he combined. I know in my head it's always called woggling now. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
the point is this: I did it, and this woman were kind of doing this, and she just looked at me and she just screamed like in German, "Mano!" Like God damn it! And I was just kind of like,
Whoa.
whoa, and I was like, this is my go-to example of Berliners just being like really outwardly just aggressive.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty special. But so they get wound up so easily. But yeah, I kind of miss longboarding. It was a cool thing to do. If you bring a fold, sorry, I'm going to bring up Donald's comment here. If you have a folding bike,
Oh
bring
yeah, yeah.
bring. Oh, the folding bike is called Brompton.
Brompton,
Okay, bringing bike inside, not a
Brompton. That
problem.
that that sounds like a frat guy's name.
Yeah. I thought Brompton was some kind of like bringing bike inside, not a problem. It was somehow abbreviated to Brompton or something, but I don't know.
Huh.
I get it. Yeah. Folding bikes. Yeah. What are you going to do? I mean, to be honest, like public transport in Berlin, you just jump on and go where you want to go to.
Yep.
But yes, I
Yep.
am. Brompton is the apple of folding bikes. Oh, there you go. See,
Oh, so you can't fix them yourself, and you can only buy the tires from one place. And am I on the right track here?
I'm detecting some kind of brand
I
brand
I used to
loyalty here.
I used to be an Apple fanboy. I as a music producer, I used nothing but Apple for many years. But that was back when you could actually repair them yourself. And
Yeah. Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
so when they started, and then of course the iPhone came out, and for a little while it looked like they were gonna like let apps anybody make apps, and now then it was like, oh, now you have to go through just the app store. And I guess the European Union has actually like recently gotten them to
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
up on that, but they're like being real petty about it too. So I don't know. I feel like the whole right to prepare thing should just be everybody should just be on board with that. It shouldn't be we have to like take companies to court to force them to allow us to repair the device that we
It
supposedly
is.
own.
It's ridiculous. I mean, this is one of my things that are starting to drive me crazy recently. Talking about things, repairing things that you actually own. What's driving me crazy recently is a number of things that I realize that I just don't own. Like I don't
Mm,
know own any TV shows or music or
hmm
films, and I've been very just tempted recently to just go and buy a DVD player and start buying DVDs again. I said to my
hmm
wife, and I was like, it's ridiculous how we have like I think we subscribe to like 3 streamers. We've got like 4 actually. We've got Netflix, Disney, Prime, and
Right.
Apple TV, which is produces good stuff. But I'm like, if I have
Yes, Apple
those four,
TV. I will admit, Apple TV makes really good
but
material.
if
But
I have those 4 things, I should be legally able to watch any film in the world that I want to watch. Like
hmm
any certainly Hollywood. It's like how can I not? It's like oh, I want to watch this film. Oh, it's not available anywhere. So that's it.
hmm
I'm done now.
Yep.
Drives me crazy not owning stuff anymore. Anyway,
Yep.
that's something around there. I wanted to bring up someone on the screen talking about like brand loyalty, and it was just a tweet that I saw today, which kind of made me laugh. And it's a bit random. I hope it works. Can you see this? Oh my god, it's huge. I apologize. Um,
Oh,
I'm
Microsoft.
Microsoft, the world's most valuable company, a title I've had since 1998, and I'm known for my dominant hold on software. You now have 2 email applications named Outlook and Outlook New. This is very professional.
All right. Yeah, and Teams new, and
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah,
I saw that. I was like, that's a pretty fair point to be honest.
yeah,
It's just it's maddening this stuff,
yep.
It's like who thought? And I think that in the comments underneath they were like, soon we're gonna have Outlook new and Outlook new final and Outlook new final
Right.
V2.
Final V2. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh
What they
man.
need to do is they just need to put Outlook in version control, and then we don't have to worry about all these naming stuff, right?
There you go. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, that came in my head right now. I thought if I can find it, I'll bring it up, and there you go.
Yep.
And yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's the state of the world. There's I really applaud Microsoft for a lot of the things they've done in the recent years. I was in the like early to mid 2000s. I was about as anti-Microsoft as you could get. I was
Mm,
running Linux on every machine. I didn't have a single Microsoft
mm,
product in my entire, but that was back when Ballmer was running the company. And I
mm,
think, that since the company has taken a new direction under Satya's direction, I think that they've really embraced open source, and
mm.
they're still making mistakes. I'm not going to say they're perfect,
Of
but
course, yeah.
it's a far cry from what it used to be, and I think we still need to keep bringing up when we see something that's
Mm,
crappy. We should keep saying, hey, this is crappy, because if you let something get slip, uh,
mm.
without saying anything about it, people will just say, "Oh," you think, "Oh, okay, I guess this is okay now."
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah.
interesting. It's a. I completely agree, and I think it's interesting that they bring it right now. I was just thinking, I was gonna slowly work towards this. I think it's the only question I always ask is, which is, what's the one thing that you would change inside Microsoft Power BI, etc.
Mm,
And just to give you some time to think about what's the one thing that you would change. It can be as simple or as complex as you want. The thing that I've been thinking recently, and this might be a controversial opinion, I think just from Power BI. I haven't thought this through completely, but I think they should scrap Power BI Desktop. And I'm not saying they should scrap it completely. My perspective of this is I think Power BI Desktop is fine, but it does some things really, really badly. Yeah. Like it's
mhm,
fine. I mean, the Power Query experience is great. It works. You do what you do. The
mhm,
modeling part is okay. It could be better. Writing DAX is, in my opinion, god awful. Writing DAX
mhm.
in Power BI Desktop is horrible. But
Right.
what it's really bad at, in my opinion, is data visualization. Like
Mm,
the menus and whether you use on object formatting or you don't, the way it's all set up, I think even if you kept all of Power BI Desktop to do what it does somehow or whatever, but I would like to have a tool for Power BI that's just for the data visualization part
mm,
to make that experience so much nicer. And I honestly think that, when you have like a report that you're building or any project they're working on, and it's so messed up, you think it's just going to be easier to start from scratch here.
mhm,
I feel that I'm starting to feel that way about Power BI Desktop from a
hmm.
creation of a data visualization perspective. So that's
Huh.
one thing that I most
I
think.
guess I don't see the if I try to author a report in the service, it
Hmm.
feels just as clunky as it does on desktop. So
No,
I
no,
don't like I
I
don't
think
think
they
getting
should.
rid of desktop is going to fix that.
No, no, I think they should create no, no, I'm not saying they should scrap all desktop everything. I think
Huh.
they should scrap what we now know as Power BI Desktop and then create a separate desktop program for the creation of.
Just for the visualization.
Yeah,
So maybe the idea is, rather than have the thick report where it's a report and a model and it's all in
exactly.
one,
Yeah,
let's make an app that's just for the reporting and an app that's just for the modeling, and have well, I mean, we have an app that's just for the modeling. It's called Tabular Editor.
right. Exactly. I mean, this is the thing.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's pretty much how I work. If I need to make a report from scratch, including the data model, I pretty much do most of the work in Tabular Editor,
yeah,
and then design the visuals in desktop. And yeah, the visuals experience in desktop is still a far cry from what I would consider
yeah,
intuitive. But it's also, compared to when I started back in 2018, it's like leaps
yeah,
and bounds better from where we were. I think they're heading in the right direction, and especially with the latest updates that are going on with the core visuals. Now that we have like a dedicated product owner for the
yeah.
for the improvement of the product of that the core visuals. That's huge.
So I agree
So
with that. So it for me, I think the visuals that you create are getting better, right? So Miguel
mhm,
Maya's work is getting better, but I
right.
think the more they work on the creation of now you can create these better core visuals, the more
Mhm,
they do that, the more they highlight the inadequacies of the user interface to create those visualizations, because it's
mm,
like, oh, now we have these options, there's like 20 more options to do 20 more things, and it's great,
mhm.
it can look so much better, but to now navigate through those options is not so much harder, you know
Yep.
and I think
Yeah.
that's
So having the you're talking about like the sidebar where all the options
sidebar
are. Yeah.
or on object, yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of stuck in a situation where Power BI has been around long enough
Mm.
where a lot of the options, they're there because they've always been there, And
Yeah.
in order
Exactly.
to like move, we have this whole thing. It's like kind of like how Windows has been for many many years. There's so much backwards compatibility that's built into
Mm.
Windows. If they were to design Windows from scratch right now, it would be, 10 times as good as it is, because they wouldn't have to worry about trying to keep backwards compatibility with all these other enterprise software that was designed for earlier versions of the operating system. And I guess the corollary with that with Power BI is that people are using the current release of Power BI Desktop to work on a report that was authored in 2017,
Yeah.
and you can't open that file and work on it unless it actually can support all of
Mm.
the features and the properties and everything that were there at the time.
Yeah.
So we've now got, kind of like this mishmash of the old way of doing things
Mm.
and the new way of doing
Mm.
things, and it's all kind of rolled into one thing. And I think we're just in that awkward stage where they haven't figured out, hey, you know what, we're just going to say, look, at some point we're going to say, look, we're cutting off any files that were made with Power BI Desktop earlier than this version. We're not going to support them anymore. And I think
Yeah.
they probably need to make that call at some point here and just
That's a
say,
fair
all right,
point. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't just open up a file that was authored in a version of Power BI Desktop that's the equivalent of DOS 3 point whatever. Like we got to say, look, backwards compatibility has got to have an oldest date cutoff. Like they got end of life support for Windows. And Windows 10 is going to be EOL like next year, right? So like, I think we could probably roll off support for Power BI Desktop
Yeah.
versions that are older than
Yeah. That's a fair
5
point.
years or something like that, and then just say, look, we'll have like a version of Power BI Desktop that will be okay. This one will still support everything that's older than that,
Mm.
and if you upgrade something from way earlier, get it up
Yeah.
to that one, then there's like an intermediate stage where you save it from that program, then you open up in the new version of desktop and you upgrade it again or something.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way to deal with that. But yeah, I like I said, it's a long process, and I
Yeah.
think the on object is probably a step in the right direction, because that's what feels intuitive. The idea is,
Mm.
if you want to edit properties of an object, those properties should be there in the object. I really love the fact that now a lot of times you can just click into the title of the thing and just change it right there.
Yeah.
That's great. Um,
And I've got to say, I for the first time in years, actually, it was for a joke. It was on Twitter. Someone said, "Oh, can we make a 3D pie chart of this?" And I was like, "Oh, let's go with it. I'm going to make a 3D pie chart in Excel." And honestly, some of the experience of creating data viz inside of Excel was actually really nice.
mhm,
It's been a long time since I've done it, but creating like whatever, like bar charts, all this stuff to click on it, and it was so wonderfully
yep,
intuitive. Some parts are terrible, don't get me wrong, but some of it was just such a nice departure. Is that the correct word? A nice departure from what I'm used to
yeah,
with Power BI. Yeah,
yep. Yeah, people
it's
talk a lot of smack about Excel,
mm,
but it's still probably one of the most powerful enterprise apps out there. I mean, it can do a little bit of basically anything.
mm,
I like to call it like the Swiss Army knife of data. It's
yeah.
a little bit good at a lot of things,
Okay.
and I think it gets you to where you can kind of get a proof of concept, or prove that, hey, my hypothesis about what we can do with this data is correct. It
Mm,
doesn't scale up. So now that I know that it's possible to do this, let's move it to Power BI and go from there. So
yeah, makes sense.
as far as you asked me the question of what I think would be better in Power BI, like what like one thing I want them to fix, and that is I want dark mode. I've been asking for that, since since the first day I opened Power BI Desktop, because I was like, oh look, the sidebar back then was dark. I was like, I like the sidebar. I don't like this blinding canvas over here. And they've been showing off a dark version of dark mode at like the last couple of big Microsoft conferences, and they still haven't given it to us. Like,
True,
come on,
actually, yeah.
guys! Like, you've been showing it on your presentations. It's obviously out there. Come on, give us the sauce.
That's a
So,
good point. I never thought about that. They have, because there was mention a while back, and I think also Chris, if Chris is still here, he's also been waiting for dark mode for a while as well. I
mhm.
think he's a big fan. I personally like pretty much never used dark. I shared my screen the other day, and someone said, "Use light mode." I said, "Yeah, use light mode." They're like, "Oh, that's crazy. Use light mode." It's one of my things.
There's
Other
some weird
than
psychology about it. Like, there's I've seen some conflicting research. Some people are saying, that it kind of depends on your like circadian cycles and things like
mm,
that. Like, I'm the kind of person where I prefer to look at things in dark mode because it feels easier on my eyes. And it does. I feel like I can go longer looking at a dark screen than I can go looking at a light screen without having to like kind of go and do
I
something else for a
understand that. Yeah,
while.
yeah. I think what
So it's probably not healthy for my body. I probably ought to be getting up and taking a break more often. But my ADHD says I need to sit and still. And if I'm in the zone, I need to try to get as much productivity out of that you
Yeah.
know, being in the zone as possible. So yeah.
Understand, understand. But yeah, I think dark mode is a fair answer. I think it would make a lot of people very happy, and of course,
It's the
unless if
number
it's
one. It's the one number one request on ideas. I guess it's ideas.fabric.com now.
yeah,
But
something like
yep.
that. Yeah, you can say Power BI, so we all know it's the same thing.
Right.
But unless I'm not, Power BI desktop when it was first released was in dark mode, right?
It had a dark interface on all of the outer sides. So like the
Mm,
sidebars, the
yeah,
places where like the properties pane, the data pane, all that stuff over there on the
mm,
right side. And in fact, I think even the ribbon, all
yeah.
that stuff was dark originally. And then at one point, I don't know, maybe 2.5 years ago or something like that, they just released a new word version, and
Mm.
it just like opened up for the first restaurant. And I was like,
Yeah. My eyes.
yeah,
The
yeah,
full Gizmo
yep,
moment, you know?
yep.
Uh, Actually, if we just stick to that particular thing about colors and what have you, a smaller thing, if they completely ignore my idea to scrap Power BI Desktop, which they probably will because I understand, but please, for the love of God, allow me to select the colors. For example, everything used to be yellow, now it was green because of fabric.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I
Like allow
hate
you to
that.
change the highlight color.
I
Uh,
I can't see it anymore.
yeah,
When you got this gray and this green, I
yep,
literally I click on stuff and I was like, "What? I can't." Yeah, it takes me so much longer to see where I've clicked.
yep.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's
And
funny. In Windows, we've got the ability to change the highlight color on our like
absolutely,
anywhere, like if your settings dialog, your start menu, and anywhere, like you can change the color of
yeah,
a highlight, and you can change the hue,
absolutely.
the saturation, all that. Like I don't understand how
It's a
they don't just take those same, because it's
yeah,
all just like it's all just UI widgets right under the hood. It's all just like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure that it's all powered by the same engine under the hood. I don't know why I can't just take that and put that in Power BI Desktop, but
And it's
yeah.
a very, very common functionality. I mean, you can do it in Tablet Editor. You can do it in,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back in the day when I used to work with SRP, you could change all the colors of changing
Mm-hmm.
what you clicked on there. So I
Yep.
think it's a pretty a normal thing
Yep.
to expect. But it's really just the fact that it used to be perfectly fine. I had no problem with it, and when they changed it, it just made it significantly worse. Even stuff like if you go to the modeling view in Power BI Desktop, I wish you could change like how it highlights stuff. Like if you click on a table, if I
Mm-hmm.
click on something, like it would be nice if it kind of, so for example, you have the modeling view, so you kind of zoomed out so you can see your entire model,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how big it is. You click on the table. I wish it made it more obvious which one you were clicking on,
Yep.
because it does highlight it like a little bit, but
Yep.
really not significantly enough to make it stand out, you know? That could be
I want
cool.
it to where if you click on one table, it
Mm.
highlights that one in a really intense color, and then all the
All
related
the
tables get a slightly
yes,
less intense highlight.
completely. That would be wonderful. Kind of like a click on a data visualization. It
Mm-hmm.
highlights how it highlights or
Yep.
filters and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Exactly that.
Exactly. Cross highlight and cross filter on the model diagram. Get on it, Microsoft.
There you go. You heard it here first. They're gonna
Exactly.
they'll do it, and I'm sure they'll credit you somehow, James. For sure.
We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. No, it's been over an hour, and I always kind of this always sneaks up on me. So I'll say thank you very much for. I'm sorry for cutting you off so quickly there.
No, no, this is
But
this is perfect.
it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you
Absolutely.
about data stuff, non-data stuff, the
Hmm.
usual combination of randomness that is kind of like what the show is, to be honest.
That's what I like about this live stream. I know that when I tune in, I'm going to hear some of the stuff that's like totally relevant to what I'm working on. And I'm also going to learn things that I had no idea I was going to even hear about. So yeah.
Exactly. That's the goal, right?
Yep.
Also, of course, everyone in the chat as well. It's always fun to have your comments and questions and
Absolutely.
your information about Des Moines, and that kind of stuff as well. So
Hmm.
very cool. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be back probably next Thursday, if not the Thursday after. No, not next Thursday. Next Thursday, I'm on a business trip, so I won't be back next Thursday. I lied to you. I apologize profusely. But take care, and I'll see you soon, everyone. Cheers.
All right. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.